The chorus of rusted ceiling fans buzzed above the classroom, like a swarm of irritated bees, but even they couldn't drown out the tension tightening around 12-year-old Marcelito's chest. It was supposed to be an ordinary morning math worksheets. Chalk dust, the faint smell of wet shoes drying under desks. But Miss Granger had other plans. She stood at the front of the room with her arms crossed, tapping a ruler against her palm. Her sharp glasses glinted as she scanned the class with the same expression she used whenever she smelled trouble or hope. She didn't like hope much. "All right," she said, her voice clipped. "We're doing music evaluations today. If your name is called, you will stand and sing 2 lines. Simple." The room buzzed with nervous whispers. Some kids groaned, others grinned. But Marcelito swallowed hard. His heart thudded in his ears. He loved singing. It was the one thing that made him feel like he wasn't just another shy kid from a poor family with hand-me-down shoes, but it was also the thing that made him different. Sometimes his voice came out soft and warm like a cello, other times, out of nowhere, it soared high and bright like a woman's soprano. Kids joked about it, called him Two Throats, the parrot, double voice freak. Miss Granger clicked her tongue. Marcelito Pomoy, his stomach dropped. He stood slowly, hands trembling, and stepped to the front. The floorboards creaked loudly beneath his feet. Some kids were already smirking. "Go on," Miss Granger said, nodding harshly. "Let's hear it." He closed his eyes. He thought of home, the tiny house, where the walls didn't quite meet the roof, where wind whispered through the cracks at night. He thought of his mother humming old folk songs while stirring rice, her voice gentle as warm rain. He thought of how music made everything hurt less. And then he sang. Just 2 lines, that's all. At first, it came out smooth and deep, like a comforting lullaby. A few students lifted their brows, surprised, but on the second line, like it always did, the other voice rose out of him, soaring higher, thinner, incredibly clear. A perfect, beautiful soprano. But no one here thought it was beautiful. A ripple of laughter broke across the room. "Oh my gosh, he sounds like a girl." 2 voices again. What is wrong with him? One boy clutched his throat dramatically. Another fanned himself as if overwhelmed by the opera performance. Marcelito's cheeks burned hot. He lowered his gaze, wishing he could fold into himself and disappear. Miss Granger didn't even attempt to silence the class. She let the laughter swell, until it echoed off the walls like cruel thunder. Then she slammed the ruler against her desk. Enough. The room fell silent instantly. She turned to Marcelito with a look so cold, it made him feel naked and small. "Stop, just stop," she said, each word slicing through him like a blade. "Marcelito, you will never be a singer." His breath caught. "Never?" The word felt heavier than his own body. She wasn't finished. "You don't sound normal," she said bluntly. "This." She circled her hand vaguely in the air as if trying to describe something distasteful. "This strange thing your voice does. It's not talent, it's not special, it's a flaw." He felt every pair of eyes digging into him. A flaw. The kid snickered again, quieter this time but no less painful. "You should focus on realistic skills," she continued, "realistic dreams. Something fitting. Because singing," she shook her head firmly, "it's not for you. Don't embarrass yourself again, embarrass yourself." The words stabbed deeper than anything else. Marcelito stared at her, his vision blurring. This wasn't just a critique, it was humiliation. Final. Absolute. Spoken like a verdict in a courtroom where he didn't even get to defend himself. He tried to speak, but the lump in his throat was too big. So he just nodded weakly, turned around, and walked back to his seat. The floor seemed longer, heavier, like he was trudging through sinking mud. As he sat down, his classmates leaned away from him instinctively, as if his broken voice might be contagious. He pressed his trembling hands between his knees. Miss Granger moved on with the lesson, as if she hadn't just crushed the one thing he held sacred. Marcelito stared at his desk, until the wood grain blurred into waves. His heart felt too big, and too small all at once. A balloon trying to fit through a keyhole. And inside that heart, something cracked. Softly, quietly, like a small twig snapping in a lonely forest. Around him, the class kept laughing, whispering, breathing, but Marcelito didn't hear any of it. His ears filled with a dull roar, like ocean waves crashing inside a cave. Maybe they were right. Maybe his voice was wrong. Maybe he should have never opened his mouth at all. And yet, somewhere deep in his memory, he recalled hearing that even Elvis Presley, one of the greatest voices of all time, once had a teacher who claimed he'd never be a singer. But that felt like a distant story from another world, another boy. Right now, in this classroom, under these flickering lights, with Miss Granger's judgment hanging over him like a dark storm cloud, the walk home that afternoon felt longer than usual. The dirt road that led to Marcelito's neighborhood wound through tall grass and quiet fields. But today even the birds seemed to avoid singing. Maybe they sensed he didn't want to hear another voice, not even nature's. With every step, Miss Granger's words replayed in his mind. Never be a singer. It's a flaw. Don't embarrass yourself again. He kicked a pebble, just to hear something other than that voice. It skidded across the path, bounced once, then disappeared into a ditch. He wished the embarrassment clinging to him could disappear that easily. The sun sagged low, dipping behind palm trees, as he reached their small, wooden home, a crooked structure patched together with tin sheets and old nails. Despite its rough edges, it was warm, lived in, loved. His mother, ailing Rosa, stood outside, sweeping dust from the doorway. She looked tired, her shoulders slumped from years of early mornings and late nights washing clothes for neighbors. But when she saw Marcelito, her face softened instantly. "Anak, you're late," she said gently. "Everything okay?" Marcelito forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, Ma." He wasn't ready. Not yet. Not to break her heart with the truth that someone had tried to crush the one thing she always said was his gift. Inside, the house felt smaller than usual. One room held everything: a worn-out couch, a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a corner where his mother kept her sewing materials. The air smelled like boiled rice and the faint sweetness of dried mangoes. He set his bag down quietly and sat near the window. Outside, the wind brushed through the banana leaves like a gentle reminder that the world kept moving even when you didn't want it to. His mother ladled thin rice porridge into 2 bowls. There wasn't much, but she always made it look like a feast. "Eat, Anak," she said. "You need strength for school." School. The word twisted like a knife. He picked at his food without appetite. His mother's eyes never missed anything. She sat across from him, wiping her hands on her apron. "Tell me what's bothering you," she said softly. "No pressure. Just love." He stared into his bowl, watching steam rise like ghosts. "It's nothing." She leaned closer. "Marcelito." Something about the way she said his name, like she was holding it with both hands, made the walls inside his chest start to crack. He exhaled shakily. "Ma," Miss Granger said. "She said I shouldn't sing anymore." His mother froze. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "She said my voice is wrong." Rosa's breath hitched, but Marcelito kept going. As if confessing would finally let the pain spill out. "She said I'll never be a singer. That I embarrass myself." The whole class laughed. Ma, his voice trembled despite his efforts. "They laugh every time. Every single time." His mother reached across the table and covered his shaking hands with hers. Her palms were rough from years of work, but her touch was warm, a quiet reassurance that the world wasn't entirely cruel. "Oh, Anak," she whispered, her eyes glistening with heartbreak she tried hard to hide. "I sound weird," he said, choking on the words. "I know I do. Sometimes it's like there's 2 people inside me fighting to get out when I sing." But his mother shook her head firmly. "That's not weird. That's rare. Special." He let out a humorless laugh. "Not to them." She lifted his chin gently. "Listen to me. Some people fear what they don't understand. And sometimes even teachers can be wrong." He blinked, surprised. His mother never spoke poorly of anyone, not even when they deserved it. She brushed a tear off his cheek with her thumb. "Your voice is a gift. Maybe a strange one, maybe one people don't know how to accept yet, but still a gift." He wanted to believe her. Oh, how he wanted to. But the laughter from school rang louder in his ears than her kindness. He dropped his gaze to the table again. "It doesn't feel like a gift. It feels heavy." Silence settled between them, soft, fragile like dust drifting through sunlight. After a moment, his mother rose and walked to the small cabinet by the window. She pulled out an old tin box, dented and faded. Inside were small treasures: a dried flower from his grandmother, some old photographs, a charm bracelet missing most of its beads, and a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him. He opened it carefully. It was a torn newspaper clipping from years ago, a picture of Elvis Presley young, bright-eyed, guitar in hand. The headline read, "Teacher once told Elvis he would never be a singer." Marcelito stared at it. His mother smiled faintly. "I kept this because it reminded me of you." He looked up, breath-catching. "Me? Yes. A boy with a voice." People didn't understand. She touched his cheek. But the world eventually did. He held the clipping tightly. For the first time all day, something flickered inside him. Something small but warm. A spark. If Elvis didn't give up, she whispered, then neither should you. Marcelito nodded slowly, more to himself than to her. Maybe he wasn't broken. Maybe he wasn't wrong. Maybe he was just waiting for someone who could hear what others couldn't. He didn't know it yet, but that someone was closer than he could ever imagine, sweeping hallway, humming forgotten melodies and waiting for the moment their paths would cross. Tonight, he still felt bruised, still felt small, still felt the sting of humiliation. The next day Marcelito walked into school like a shadow, quiet, head lowered, shoulders drawn inward as if trying to make himself invisible. The chatter of other students bounced around him like rubber balls, but none of it stuck. His mind still echoed with laughter from yesterday. He slipped into the hallway early, hoping to reach his classroom before anyone noticed him. That's when he heard it. A hum. Not just any hum, warm, deep, gentle. The kind that felt like a hand placed softly over a trembling heart. Marcelito paused. The sound drifted around the corner, carrying an old melody his mother sometimes hummed during stormy nights, a song about hope surviving even in broken places. Curiosity tugged him forward. He peeked around the corner and saw him, Lolo Benny, the school janitor, bent over a mop bucket, wiping the hallway tiles with slow, steady strokes. His back curved like a question mark. His shirt, always a size too big, hung from his thin frame. His hair was more silver than black. And his eyes, when he lifted them, held the softness of someone who knew both struggle and kindness intimately. "You're here early, boy," Benny said without turning around. "Thought you kids didn't show up till the first bell forced ye." Marcelito swallowed. I just didn't want to be late." Benny chuckled, a worn-out, raspy sound. "Late is arriving when there ain't no hope left. But you," he tapped his mop handle on the floor. "You look like a boy who's early because something's heavy on your back." Marcelito said nothing. He wasn't sure why, but he didn't want to lie to this man. Benny straightened with a small groan, wiped his forehead with a rag, then leaned on his mop, like it was an old friend. "You know," Benny said, tilting his head, "I heard something yesterday." Marcelito tensed. Something loud, something painful. Benny tapped his ear. "Teachers forget these old ears hear everything." Shame flooded Marcelito's cheeks. He stared at the floor. "I sound weird," he murmured. "They all say it. Even Miss Granger." Benny nodded slowly, heard her words. "Rude woman. Talks too much, listens too little." Marcelito blinked in surprise. No adult ever warned him not to speak badly of a teacher. But here Benny was, stating it like a fact. "What she said ain't the truth," Benny continued, "not even close." "How do you know?" Marcelito whispered. Benny smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, knowing one that warmed the whole way. "Because I got something she doesn't." He tapped his chest, a heart tuned to music. Before Marcelito could reply, Benny lifted his chin and released a note. A single, powerful note. It filled the hallway with richness, deep, pure, steady. The kind of sound that felt like stepping into warm sunlight after being cold too long. Marcelito stared, stunned. You used to sing?" Benny laughed softly. "Boy, I used to live to sing. Back when these lungs of mine were strong, and the world didn't weigh on me so heavy." His eyes softened, memories flickering behind them. "Used to perform in little bars, churches, festivals, anywhere folks wanted a song." "What happened?" Marcelito asked gently. Benny's smile wavered. "Life." Just one word, but enough to show he carried sorrows too deep for children to understand. Then Benny stepped closer, looking straight into Marcelito's unsure eyes. "You got two voices in you," he said. "One bright, one deep. They ain't fightin', boy, they're harmonizin'." He pressed a rough hand to his chest. "That's not a curse, that's a blessing from above." Marcelito's throat tightened. "Nobody else thinks so. Then they ain't listenin' right." Silence settled around them, warm, not awkward. Benny's voice grew softer. "Tell me, boy, when you sing, does it hurt?" Marcelito shook his head. "No. It feels like breathing." "Then that's your answer." Benny smiled. "Anything that feels like breathing ain't meant to be thrown away." Those words hit Marcelito so deeply he couldn't speak. After a moment, Benny crouched, rummaged inside his cleaning cart and pulled out a small old metronome, its edges cracked, its paint chipped. He placed it gently in Marcelito's hands. "This belonged to a friend of mine," Benny said. "He taught me how to control my voice. Maybe it'll help you too." Marcelito stared at it, stunned. I can't take this." "Oh yes, you can." Benny winked. A gift ain't a gift unless somebody accepts it. Tears stung Marcelito's eyes, surprising him. Why are you doing this? The old man shrugged. Because someone once believed in me when nobody else did. He looked away, eyes glistening faintly. I failed my gift, Marcelito. But you still got time. The hallway clock ticked above them. Benny took a careful breath. Meet me after school. Storage room behind the gym. If you want. No pressure. The bell rang, loud and sharp. Marcelito held the metronome to his chest. He looked at Benny, the limp, the old shirt, the tired eyes, and felt something shift inside him. For the first time, someone wasn't laughing at his voice. Someone wasn't confused by it. Someone heard music in him. Okay, Marcelito whispered. I'll come. Benny nodded once, firm and proud. Good. Let's see what kind of miracle you've been hiding. And as Marcelito walked away, he realized something astonishing. The spark inside him, the tiny flame that almost died yesterday, had just grown brighter. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person who sees what the world refuses to. The storage room behind the gym was nothing special, just a small square space packed with folding chairs, old basketballs, and boxes labeled holiday decoration. But for Marcelito, it became the safest place in the world. Every day after school, he slipped in quietly, heart pounding, hoping nobody would see him. And every day, without fail, Benny was already there, leaning on a stool, tuning an old, beat-up guitar, humming some melody older than both of them. Their secret lessons began simply. Breath first, Benny would say, placing a hand on Marcelito's back. Good singing ain't about the throat. It's about letting your soul do the work. Marcelito inhaled deeply, filling his small frame with air. He held it, then released slowly. Calm. Controlled. Benny nodded proudly every time. Then came the exercises. Notes climbing like staircases. Notes falling like rain. Notes weaving between his deep voice and his high one. Some days Marcelito wobbled. Some days, both voices tangled awkwardly. But Benny never flinched. Never laughed. Never frowned. Instead, he'd smile, that soft, patient smile, the kind that felt like a warm hand on a cold night. There you go, he'd say. Let it glide. Don't force it. Your gift ain't meant to be pushed, it's meant to be let loose. Marcelito's confidence grew one breath at a time. One note at a time. One soft encouragement at a time. Between lessons, they talked. Benny told stories of his old singing days, bars filled with cigarette smoke, little churches where the walls shook from choirs, towns where one good song could make a whole room forget their troubles. Marcelito soaked up every word like sunlight. But what touched him most wasn't the stories, it was the truth Benny tried to hide in them. The nights he slept hungry because gigs paid nothing. The family he lost touch with because chasing dreams didn't always pay the bills. The fear that he'd wasted the one talent God had gifted him. Once, while tuning his guitar, Benny said softly, I used to think God gave me this voice so I could stand on a stage. He plucked a single, trembling note. But maybe it was so I could be here, with you. The words hit Marcelito so hard his throat closed up. He didn't know how to respond. So he simply nodded, blinking back tears. Some afternoons, when they both felt brave, Benny would ask him to switch voices mid-song. It was the thing Marcelito feared most, not because it hurt, but because it made him different. The source of laughter. The reason he stayed quiet. But here was celebrated. 1-2, Benny tapped the metronome. Shift, Marcelito switched, from deep to high. The sound soared, pure and startling. Benny clapped his hands like a proud father. See? That's magic, boy. Ain't no other kid in this school got that power. Marcelito blushed. It still sounds strange. Benny tapped his chest. Strange is what changes the world. Their bond grew stronger with every passing day. Something unspoken connected them. Two souls who understood what it felt like to be dismissed, doubted, broken. Two voices, one young, one old, healing each other in ways neither could explain. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled outside, Marcelito finally asked the question that had been burning inside him. Benny, why didn't you keep singing? You're good, really good. Benny looked out the small window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Life took things from me, he said quietly, things I couldn't get back. He didn't elaborate, and Marcelito didn't push. But he understood enough. That day, after they practiced, Marcelito sang for him the folk song his mother hummed while cooking. He poured his heart into it, letting both voices dance together like a duet inside one body. When he finished, he saw Benny wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. You okay? Marcelito asked softly. Benny chuckled through tears. You're gonna make this old man cry every day if you keep singing like that. Was it good? Marcelito asked, nervous. Benny stepped forward and placed both hands on the boy's shoulders. Marcelito, listen to me. His voice trembled with emotion. You are gonna sing in front of the whole world one day, and when you do, I want you to remember something. He paused, fighting his emotions. Remember that an old janitor heard greatness in you, before anyone else did. The words cracked something deep inside Marcelito, a place, still bruised from Miss Granger's cruelty. Tears slipped quietly down his cheeks. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, Benny replied, patting his cheek gently. Just promise me you'll keep singing. Even when it hurts. Even when folks tell you to stop. Promise me you'll hold on to that voice. Marcelito nodded firmly, wiping his tears. I promise. And from then on, he sang like someone who finally believed in himself, day by day. Song by song. Voice by voice. But Benny's cough grew worse. His steps slower. His breathing heavier. Marcelito didn't understand the signs yet. He was too young, too hopeful. He only knew that Benny always showed up. Always smiled, always listened, like Marcelito's voice was the most precious sound on earth. Neither of them realized that their lessons, their shared healing, were building towards something far bigger than either could imagine. A moment years later, when both of their lives would collide with destiny. A moment the whole world would witness. A moment born right here, in a dusty storage room, between a broke boy and a forgotten man. Teaching each other how to breathe again. Elvis never forgot, not the cold classroom, not the laughter, not Mrs. Hargreaves' voice slicing through his ribs like a blade. Not even the feel of the wooden mop handle when Mr. Turner placed it in his small hands and said, "You ain't broken, son. You're becoming." All of it, every bruise, every kindness lived deep inside him as he grew. Years passed like pages turned by a gentle wind, and while the teacher's words faded into dust, Mr. Turner's voice grew louder in his heart. Elvis practiced every day before school, after chores, late at night when everyone slept. The old janitor's secret lessons had carved something strong inside him. Something unshakable. But life wasn't done testing him. At 16, the Turner house went dark. Lights gone. Windows boarded up. A for sale sign hammered into the dry Tennessee dirt. Elvis raced down the road barefoot, gravel slicing his feet. He pounded on the door until the hinges rattled. "Mr. Turner, it's me. You home?" Silence answered. Heavy, lonely, absolute. A neighbor stepped out, tying her robe. "You just missed him, Elvis," she said softly. "His heart ain't doing too good. His son took him to Memphis for treatment. Heard he's real sick." Elvis swallowed hard, a whole world dimming. "Did they leave an address?" "No, baby, I'm sorry." And just like that, the only person who believed in him gone. Not dead, but missing from his life all the same. Elvis stared at the empty house until the sun dipped behind the hills. Then, with a slow breath, he whispered into the wind, "I won't let you down, Mr. Turner. I promise." The years rolled forward, hard years, working at machinist shops, driving trucks, singing whenever he could, bars, fairs, anywhere they'd let a nervous boy stand near a microphone. Some nights, he wanted to quit, walk away. Forget the dream entirely. But every time he thought about giving up, he'd hear the old man's voice, gentle, worn, steady. "Sing from where it hurts, boy. God listens closest to cracked voices." And Elvis sang. He sang until the cracks became thunder, until the hurt became fire. Then one day everything changed. A producer in Memphis heard a young man recording a simple song at Sun Studio. Something raw, something honest, something that sounded like every broken dream rising to its feet. They asked his name. "Elvis Presley," he said, nervous but steady. The world tilted. Doors opened. Crowds started to roar his name. But even with the fame, the flashing lights, the shaking hands of fans, Elvis kept thinking about one question. Did Mr. Turner ever hear him sing? And then it happened. A night Elvis would carry forever. He was backstage before a huge performance, his biggest yet. A special guest segment with AGT champions. The place buzzed like a live wire. Stage hands rushed, cameras clicked. Judges whispered behind the desk. Simon Cowell studied his notes, unaware of the storm about to hit him. The audience waited like they were holding their breath. All together Elvis inhaled. His hands trembled, and right before he walked out, a stage assistant tapped his shoulder. "Sir, someone's here asking for you." Elvis blinked. "Who?" The assistant's voice softened. Said his name is Turner. Mr. Turner. The world stopped. just stopped. Elvis felt everything inside him crumble and rebuild in the same heartbeat. He followed the assistant down a dim hallway, past crates and cables, until there he was. Older. Thinner, face lined with time, but those eyes the same gentle, steady eyes sparkled like dawn. "Well," the old janitor whispered, smiling through tears, "looks like you turned out okay." Elvis dropped to his knees and hugged him so tightly the air trembled. "I've been looking for you," he cried. "You're the reason I'm here. You saved me." Mr. Turner brushed a trembling hand across Elvis's cheek. "No, son, you saved yourself. I just reminded you what was already there." Elvis shook his head. "Stay right here. I want you to see this. I want the whole world to see you." Mr. Turner chuckled. "Oh Lord, don't put me on no stage." But Elvis was already pulling him by the arm, tears falling, heart pounding. They stepped into the light. The judges froze. The audience gasped. Simon Cowell leaned forward. "Elvis, who is this gentleman?" And with his voice shaking like the first time he ever sang, Elvis said, "This is the man who believed in me when nobody else did. My teacher said I'd never be a singer." The whole school laughed. "But this man, this janitor, sat with me every single day and told me I could. Without him, none of you would know my name." The audience erupted into tears and applause. Simon Cowell stood up, eyes wet, jaw trembling. Elvis turned back to Mr. Turner, his voice soft enough to break a soul. "This stage, this song, it ain't mine. It's yours." And when Elvis sang Lord, he sang like every note was a thank you. Like every breath was a promise kept. Like every moment was God shining through a cracked voice. Just like Mr. Turner taught him. When the final note faded, the entire audience stood, a sea of people cheering not just for a star, but for the man who lit the spark. After the show, Elvis helped Mr. Turner into a seat on stage, and pressed a small, shaking envelope into his hands. "What's this?" the old janitor asked. "A home," Elvis whispered. "Yours, paid in full, near my mother's place. You'll never struggle again. Not while I'm alive." Mr. Turner cried hard, loud, unashamed. "You didn't have to." Elvis pulled him close. "I did. Because you gave a poor, scared boy his voice back." And somewhere in the roar of applause, in the blinding lights of the AGT champion stage, in the tears running down a grown man's smile, a promise was fulfilled, a destiny rewritten, a kindness returned, and the world finally saw what one quiet act of love had created, a legend, a miracle, a voice that would never die.